Thanks for your patience, everybody. Joined by Amna Macken, who is our project manager for the search of the Prairie Green landfill. Wanted to be on site when the first load of material was moved, and while I was there, wanted to lend a hand as well too. So I appreciate everybody sitting tight for a little bit. To the people of Manitoba, when we work together, we can move mountains. And today, we began stage 4 of the search of the Prairie Green landfill. It's a humanitarian mission to bring home the remains of Marcedes Myran and Morgan Harris. So with stage 4 underway, this means we are searching a targeted zone of landfill material in the cell of interest where we believe the remains of these two women are most likely to be. Starting at around 6 o'clock this morning, workers were on site doing the prep work. Short time later, excavation of this targeted zone began, and I can tell you that I witnessed with my own eyes at 10:01 a.m. the first truck carrying landfill material drove down this mountain that is Prairie Green and delivered that first load of landfill material into the search facility, the Quonset, as we're calling it. From there, skid steer operators spread the material out, and the search technicians, using rakes and then with their own glove-covered hands, began to work their way through the material. We found some items which indicate that we are in the right date range and time, and of course they are proceeding meticulously and preserving those items that will help us to determine that we're on a proper course here. So it's taken a lot of work to get to this point. Amna's going to have some details in terms of what this all means, but stage 3, for example, saw us move some 18,900 tons of material, landfill material, from on top of the zone of interest. That has been stored in case we need to return to the area. I can also tell you that there was asbestos in that material, and it was moved safely and without issue. The workers on site are going through a very meticulous process of donning personal protective equipment. I went through the process of getting fit tested myself, and I can tell you it's very meticulous. Then, of course, the doffing process is just as painstaking in detail. And so I'm confident that the health and safety of the workers on site is being safeguarded. Now, the pad that the search facility is stood on was constructed out of some more than 100,000 tons of material, aggregate and sand. There's a massive steel structured facility in which the waste is being spread out and where the search is taking place. And then you have basically makeshift work camp of ATCO trailers in which the searchers are taking their meals, doing their meetings, donning and doffing parts of their personal protective equipment. And so the search facility is an impressive operation, and of course our thanks go to Amna, as well as Dr. Emily Holland and everyone who is working very hard on this issue. Now, the folks have been working really hard on site to get us to this stage, but I also want to tell the people of Manitoba that we are on budget when we're talking about managing this project at the government level, if you will. The most important part of this, however, to me, is the well-being and the safety of the families. 2 years ago to the day yesterday, the Harris family found out the news that launched this entire process. Yesterday, on exactly the 2-year anniversary of that, we returned to the site with both the Harris and the Myran families, and we stood with them in ceremony. And this morning, I was there with 2 family members as we watched that first blue truck of landfill material come down to the search facility. And it is an intense emotion that you feel standing on that site with those families. And I just want to say on behalf of the people of Manitoba that we are making this effort to find your loved ones, and I hope that you know that you are loved and valued, and that Morgan and Marcedes are loved and valued. and to all people in Manitoba who've watched this whole journey unfold in a very public way, I want us to say that this is a value statement about who we are as Manitobans. We are a province where if somebody goes looking, or where if somebody goes missing, we go looking. And today, as we move into stage 4, we can say with the utmost of clarity, moral clarity, I would add, that we are living up to that statement. So this is going to be a difficult stage. It could stretch on for a very long period of time. Of course, on a personal level, professional responsibility to manage expectations aside, on a personal level, I hope that this search concludes quickly with the result that the families are looking forward to. And I hope that we can then move on to helping them walk through the next stages of their healing journeys and of grieving their loved ones who were taken from them in what are some of the worst crimes that we've ever seen in the history of our province. We also know that there have been some positive signs so far in the test pilot phase. Prior to getting to the target zone, we saw that there were dates which indicated that we are talking about the right time frame here. We also saw that the consistency and the condition of the material at this level of the landfill is in a situation where we are going to be able to identify items and potentially remains as we find them. And so along the way, everything that was previously proffered as an excuse, I think, has been systematically disproven when people tried to argue against searching the landfill. We're delivering this on budget. We're delivering this with the utmost of safety for the workers. We have managed the asbestos situation without issue. We are identifying material at the level in the proper date range and in a good enough condition for us to be able to know what we're talking about here. And so while I am professionally obligated to remind everyone that we don't know what the odds of this situation being successful are in terms of recovering the remains of Morgan and Marcedes, we can say with confidence that we have a chance for this search to succeed. So no matter what lies ahead, we can say that we tried and we made the effort for these families, which is very significant. And when we reflect over everything that's happened over these past 2 years, there were some pretty difficult moments, of course, for the families, of course, for folks like the late Grand Chief Kathy Merrick, who faced a backlash for speaking out in favor of this search. But to me, probably some of the most concerning moments came when neighbor was being turned against neighbor. And the fact that Manitobans were able to power through that divisive period, turn the page, and then now come together today to say that we are making a compassionate attempt, a humanitarian search to recover the remains of Morgan and Marcedes, to me says something beautiful about the province of Manitoba. And so to you, the people of Manitoba, when we work together, we can move mountains. Today, at Prairie Green, we are moving a mountain to return the remains of Morgan and Marcedes. May God bless this search. Turn things over to Amna to give us the technical details.
Thank you, Premier. Good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Amna Mackin, and I'm the project management lead for the landfill search. Today, I'm both proud and filled with gratitude to say that we've achieved our most significant milestone to date, and that is the start of stage 4. As Premier said, it's a day that the families of Morgan Harris and Marcedes Myran have been waiting for over 2 years, and today we are one step closer to finding their loved ones. Earlier this year, we shared that we had developed a 5-staged approach for the search. And as a reminder of what those stages are, stage 1 was the initial planning. And we developed our preliminary plans, secured our budgets, and obtained our regulatory approvals to proceed. Stage 2 started in June, and it included the construction of a search facility area and temporary structures. It also included a pilot test program and an engineering assessment to determine our targeted zone. We established our search process and developed our health and safety plans. And during stage 2, we recruited and trained our search team workforce. Stage 3 started earlier in October, and it included the careful displacement of the waste above our targeted zone. And as Premier said, this waste has been set aside for possible searching at a later date. I'm pleased to say that both Stage 2 and 3 officially concluded last week, and today marks the start of Stage 4. This stage is anticipated to continue till spring of 2025, and it includes searching through approximately 20,000 cubic meters of waste in hopes of finding the remains of Morgan and Marcedes. As we near the conclusion of Stage 4, if we have not recovered remains of Morgan and Marcedes, we'll make a determination as to what additional searching will be required as part of Stage 5. And that may include excavating deeper within the cells in the landfill or going back to some of the waste that was displaced as part of our Stage 3 operations. On screen, behind me, we can see a video of the search facility area that has been developed, including our search facility building and the trailers that will support the search. For many of us on the project team, it has been a long journey over the last several months, and to get us where we are, there's been a significant infrastructure and search planning project that has been underway. With all sincerity, I cannot speak highly enough about the project team that's been supporting our work so far, and I'd like to just take a few minutes to acknowledge the incredible effort that's been put forth by so many individuals. As an important partner on our team, we thank the owners at Waste Connections of Canada, from their leadership and engineering teams to their on-site operational staff. We thank them for all their time, commitment, and expertise as we've worked through our initial stages of the search. We also thank Dr. Emily Holland for her dedication to date and her continued efforts going forward. Dr. Holland has taken a leave of absence as an associate professor with the Brandon University in order to take on the role of forensic anthropologist and search director for our work. We thank the incredible team at WSP Canada who have been providing technical expertise, project management, and coordination support. And we extend our appreciation to the multiple contractors who've been providing the infrastructure that we need for the search. And that includes Earthmax Construction, Winkler Canvas, Spring Hill Lumber, Jablonski Electrical, Atco Trailers, Prairie Architects, KBL Environmental, as well as Manitoba Hydro and several other subcontractors. We'd also like to express our appreciation to Staff Sergeant Leonis and the Public Safety Unit from the Saskatoon Police for taking the time to share their valuable insight from their recent successful landfill search. I would like to also personally thank my leadership team at the Executive Council office, as well as my fellow civil servants for their unwavering dedication and support. As we know, this has been a government priority, and it's been incredible to see collaboration spanning across multiple departments in government, from Indigenous and Reconciliation, who are helping to lead the file, to our technical support team with personnel from Workplace Safety and Health, Environmental Approvals Branch, Heritage Resource Branch, and Transportation and Infrastructure, to our Public Service Commission, who have provided invaluable support for recruitment, mental health supports, and coordination of staff training, and so many other departments who've been providing financial, legal, and procurement support. I can say we are truly fortunate to have so many committed civil servants contributing to our work. And so as we start Stage 4, we thank all the individuals who have stepped forward to participate as part of our search team. We've assembled a diverse team with people from all walks of life, including family and community members, students with relevant experience, to seasoned and skilled anthropologists and archaeologists. Each and every search team member has been carefully selected in collaboration with the families as well as the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs, because we knew how important it was to the families that the right individuals were selected to participate in the search. We are pleased to say that approximately half of our search team are Indigenous, and that we've also engaged the help of Indigenous companies for both skid steer and snow removal operations. Last week, comprehensive training was provided to the search team to prepare them with the knowledge and tools to protect both their physical and mental well-being through the search, and to provide them with the knowledge and information regarding the search process. And today, they start to put that training to work. As I said earlier, it's been a journey spanning over 2 years for the families of Morgan and Marcedes, from their early advocation and to working with the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs in the development of a feasibility study. to more recently their leadership and dedication as part of an oversight committee, as well as their direct involvement in the recruitment of the search team. With a family's first approach in mind, they have been with us every step of the way, and we thank them for their impactful voices and their perseverance. Earlier in June, we had the opportunity to sit down with the families privately and share our search plan with them. We shared our projected timeline of starting stage 4 at the beginning of December. And as the months progressed, they asked if we were still on track. And while we had no shortage of challenges, I'm so grateful to every individual who's contributed to delivering stage 4 on schedule and, as Premier says, on budget. And more significantly, for delivering on our commitment to the families to search the Prairie Green landfill for their loved ones. But the coming months will not be easy, we know this, but we've assembled a team of incredible search personnel who are committed to doing the work to try and bring home Morgan and Marcedes and to give the families the closure that they're seeking. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, well, you've heard from the expert, and we're happy to entertain questions.
How many people are working on the search overall?
Overall, we've hired 45 search team members, and that includes search team leaders and family liaisons. In addition to that, we have Dr. Holland and her assistant. We have an on-site health and safety officer, a director of operations, and we've enlisted the help of Rockwood Landscaping to provide skid steer operators.
We saw some photos on the screen of materials from some of the materials that are being searched. Is that from this morning, or is that from the earlier material that was moved?
That would have been from a layer just above the targeted zone. So as we were nearing our targeted zone, we had an opportunity to take some samples to see what we were dealing with.
Can you talk a little bit about the actual process of going through the material? Is it a table height? Is the Quonset heated? Like what sort of working conditions and practices there?
Sure. And we described this a little bit in detail in October when we were on site. But so the search facility building is 130 feet wide by 200 feet long. It's separated into 2 sides so that we can have an efficient process for spreading and searching waste, while another side is used to spread waste to create an efficient process. So as Premier described, the materials is first excavated from the cell location, hauled to the search facility building. Those materials will be placed within the building, and skid steer operators will spread those materials in long lines within the search facility. A team of 12 search technicians and their team leader will spread materials out a little bit further and look for any materials of interest. Once the material has been cleared, meaning items of interest have either been removed off the line or there are no items of interest, that waste material will be placed back into what is called a roll-off bin, and it will be removed and placed back into the active face of the landfill operation. And that process will continue load after load until we continue our search.
So the stuff's on the floor and people are basically poking around with sticks and...
Correct.
Okay, and is it heated or is it not?
It is partially heated, so we have 10 30-kilowatt heaters that are within the building. It certainly won't be a balmy temperature, but it definitely takes the chill off. And, of course, it being a sheltered building, it protects the workers from snow and wind and the elements.
Seeing, we saw in some of those photos just how intact some of that refuse was. Does that bode well, or does that... or is that an encouraging sign then that you could potentially find the remains of Morgan Harris and Marcedes Myran?
I think generally that would be an encouraging sign, because as we start to find items of interest, such as receipts or papers that have dates and addresses, we'll be continually looking at that information to see what it's telling us and whether or not we're in the right location of interest. It's also important to note that within a landfill, because of the compaction, it creates an anaerobic state, so things don't typically decompose. So we are expecting that if we do find remains, there may be a possibility of soft tissue still intact as well.
Premier Kinew, would you be comfortable talking about the experience you went through this morning with the families and at the landfill in French for Radio-Canada?
Oui, certainement. ben, ça fait froid aujourd'hui, comme toujours dans l'hiver. Et puis, on était là avec les travailleurs et travailleuses. C'était un grand processus pour s'habiller, pour tous les vêtements et puis les autres, les bottes et tout ça qu'on a besoin. Puis, c'était juste comme marché qu'il y avait 2 membres des familles qui sont arrivés jusqu'au même temps, à 10 heures, quand la première camion a descendu du montagne. Et puis, alors, on a juste comme partagé quelques mots. Et puis, les émotions sont très, très fortes parce que ça fait 2 ans où ces familles ont lutté pour ce moment. Et comme en tant que chef de gouvernement qui est dans une position de réaliser leur vision, c'était remarquable. Et puis après ça, on a rentré dans l'édifice et puis on a vu toute la poubelle qui était en train d'être juste préparée. Puis tous les travailleurs et travailleuses ont commencé de regarder. Quand j'étais là, ils ont trouvé un papier avec les dates de l'année 2022 et puis au mois qu'on regarde. Ils ont trouvé aussi des espèces de matériaux qui sont dans des conditions assez bonnes que nous sommes capables de les identifier. Alors, en tant que le premier ministre du Manitoba, je dois toujours dire qu'on ne sait pas si on va réussir avec cette recherche pour fouiller le dépotoir. Mais on a vu des signes qui nous encouragent. Alors, j'espère que les familles prennent cette nouvelle dans une façon peut-être qui va leur donner un peu d'espoir, mais nous savons que c'est aussi un grand travail qui nous reste, mais il y a beaucoup de personnes exceptionnelles qui nous aident. Et puis, les travailleurs et travailleuses là sont vraiment, vraiment impassionnés. J'ai partagé des mots avec eux. Ils étaient juste comme, ouais, allons-y, on y va. C'est vraiment un sens de moment important ce matin.
Merci, M. Kinew.
Merci.
Premier Kinew, today CBC published a story about Geraldine Mason, a woman from God's Lake Narrows, who was put in jail for a month because she had tuberculosis. I guess my first question for you is, what do you say to Geraldine, who spent a month in jail, not charged with a crime?
It's terrible. I say sorry. I read the story this morning. I reached out to the 2 most senior people in the government, and I said, get me an order ensuring that nobody is ever jailed for having tuberculosis again. I haven't had a chance to speak to him directly, but I understand that Dr. Rusin is going to sign a public health order to that effect today.
Sorry, can you just elaborate of what that looks like, how that will come to be, how you create that order?
That's pretty much what it is. There's a public health order that will say that public health officials are not going to seek incarceration as part of a way to treat people who have tuberculosis. Or in a situation like this, I think, that's just not the right way to do it. And I think anyone reading that story would probably feel the same way.
And do you have are you going to apologize to Ms. Mason?
Yeah, I can apologize to her if I get a chance to speak to her directly. I haven't, I've been at the Prairie Green landfill site all morning, so I haven't had a chance to follow up too much on this, but I did basically say, we're not doing this again. Give me the paperwork to back it up.
Did you get any explanation of why this happened? Was it because there were a shortage of beds, or they couldn't put her in a bed and have police guard outside the door in the hospital? Do you understand? Did you get any explanation of why this happened?
No, and I don't understand, which is why I said we're not doing this again.
Did you ask Dr. Rusin why a hospital was
I haven't spoken to him directly. Like I said, I've been on the site of Prairie Green since first thing this morning, so this has gone through government channels, if you will. Yeah.
Can you maybe possible to repeat the same answer in French?
Je pense qu'on dit tuberculosis en français. Tuberculose. OK. Alors, regarde, cette situation est horrible. J'ai lu l'article et puis j'ai juste engagé avec les deux postes les plus hauts dans le gouvernement et dit, regarde, on ne ferait ça plus encore. Donne-moi un papier qui dise que aucune personne va être arrêtée par les polices à cause qu'ils ont la tuberculose. Et puis, j'étais au dépotoir depuis ce temps-là, mais je comprends que Dr. Roussin va signer un ordre pour la santé publique qui va donner cet effet aujourd'hui.
From what I understood, you haven't had the chance to talk to the person, right?
Non.
Premier Kinew,
Mais
in
je
the interest-
m'excuse parce que c'est une situation horrible. Ouais.
Premier Kinew, in the interest of transparency, would you be willing to put up for us to be able to speak to someone from public health so we could talk to them?
You follow
about
up with staff later, yeah.
Do you think that's a good idea?
Well, I'm out here and I've answered the question, so you can follow up on specific details later.
So just to have a ban on never, ever incarcerating someone. There have been cases where there have been people before the courts because they've been infected with a sexually transmitted disease and disregarded orders to not be reinfecting people. Like, do you not see any scenario where this might be required, where incarceration might be for the public good if somebody is malicious or malevolently? I'm not saying that's the case here, but do you not think that might be an issue down the road?
I'm not going to do the hypotheticals. What I said is give me an order that says nobody is going to be put in jail because they have TB.
Premier, going back to this landfill
Yeah, of
search,
course.
can we get the, you were there this morning, you gave the French answer, can we get the English answer? Your time spent with the families this morning?
Well, we spent a good chunk of the day yesterday with the families doing a pipe ceremony, smoking the pipe, and talking to them. And yeah, it was a very powerful experience. And the big thing that members of the Harris family shared that I think I can share publicly is they said it's been 2 years to the day since we found out. And to be back there 2 years later, knowing that the search was going to begin today, I think was very, very significant. And, there was just a really powerful feeling. Amna is there, and not only is Amna a remarkable project manager, but she also has the highest level of emotional intelligence and compassion. And so she is the perfect person to be leading this process. And she's put in the time with the families. And so when we say families first, I hope Manitobans are confident that we're upholding that at every step of the way. This morning, the folks were on site, the team leads and everybody at, 6 a.m. Folks are working outdoors in a Manitoba winter. So as you would imagine, you're dealing with snow, you're dealing with ice. But the search itself, stage 4, I think we could say like the formal beginning of that was at 10:01 a.m. this morning. We saw that blue truck after it had been loaded up with by an excavator start to drive down the hill. Turned to the skid steer operator next to me. I said, "What time you got?" And he said, 10:01. And a couple family members had just arrived on site. Like they were already on site, but like at the physical location of where that Quonset steel structure is. And we just took a second to stand and watch the material begin to move. And I think they are obviously super eloquent, powerful speakers who will talk about it from their own perspective. But to be there after 2 years of this fight that they've been undertaking just for the basic dignity of their relative was very, very powerful. It was very emotional. Like you see that truck start to move, like it just feels like, like a powerful moment. And then went inside the Quonset hut. Like when we're talking about the personal protective equipment, picture like COVID ICU combined with the steel toes, high vis, and hard hat of a construction site. That's what you look like. I was wearing that. Everyone around is wearing that, right? And so we're kind of like, hand gesturing and shouting and, communicating that way. But, I think everything just kind of calm down once that truck starts to pull into the building. Everybody's like just there with a rake in hand looking to get started. The dump truck drops off that first load of material. Skid steer operators start to separate it and lay it out in the process that Umna described. And then once they clear that area, then the search technicians move forward with the rakes. It's difficult work, you know. I got a ton of respect for the people who are doing this. You're pushing mud with a rake, and then you're going in with your hands to identify receipts or dairy products, things with expiry dates. You're keeping an eye out for important materials. I would say that today being the first day, there's also a learning process going underway too, where the team leads are kind of reminding people of here's what we're looking for, here are important things to keep an eye out for. And I wasn't there for very long, but I can tell you that while I was there was a seniors newspaper that was found that is shortly after the date range that we're looking for here. And there's material, including organic material, that is in a condition where it is easily identifiable. And so the workers who are out there, they are searching through material from a landfill. So there's diapers and food and mud and all sorts of stuff, but they are completely protected, thick rubber gloves, respirators, and they're impassioned people. When we're in the trailer beforehand, it was there was clapping and people are getting hyped up in the moment. It's it's a real team vibe. And of course there's all the safety briefings. It's like a construction site, right? You get the safety briefing at the start, and then everybody does the stretches and starts to get warmed up, and then the job starts and you get to work, and it's hard work. And when I left, they were still working, and they were going to keep working until they cleared that whole area. So the first load of waste came in on the south side of that barrier. Many of you were there several weeks ago. First load came in on the south side. From what I understand, I think they were going to search that entire side before they took their lunch break. So that's hard work, right? And so I really, really want to thank those folks who are doing this very intensive manual and emotional labor. And when you think about all the contractors and subcontractors that Umna shouted out, there's a lot of hard hats and a lot of blue-collar people who've been doing a lot of heavy lifting to get us to this point. And when we think about Manitobans from all walks of life, and you have pretty much, people from every corner of Manitoba represented in the workforce and in the subcontractors, and they're all coming together to do this thing and to show these families that we care about their loved one and we care about them. It really means a lot. So as the Premier of Manitoba, I have to keep reminding everyone we don't know if this thing is going to succeed, but I pray to God that it will, because what it has taken for us to fight through the negativity and get to this point just to do something very, very basic in terms of human decency, it's been a lot. And the manual search is here, and I hope a rematriation of the remains of Morgan and Marcedes is in our future.
I'm just wondering, in terms of the first truckload coming down to 10, is there a goal of how many truckloads you want to get done a day, or a certain amount of landfill you want to search through per day?
Yeah, at this time, we've estimated a low productivity of searching one bin per hour, but we expect to be able to increase that productivity as we smooth out the process. So we're hoping to be able to do at least 2 bins an hour eventually.
But you mentioned speaking with police in Saskatoon about their successful landfill search. Can you go into any more details about what those conversations look like?
Sure.
Yeah, and once again, we'd like to thank them for taking the time. Certainly, it was encouraging to speak with them and learn from some of their experiences. In many ways, it firmed up some of the plans that we already had in place, and they shared a number of pieces of advice. I think the first and foremost, their biggest piece of advice is how important it is to have a dedicated and committed team. With ours being a humanitarian search and people raising their hand to participate, I spent last week, training week, with all the personnel, and I can tell you firsthand, they are all committed and want to be here for the right reasons. So that we've got that checked off. They also told us to be patient and to learn that it's an iterative process and to be open to changing your process to find efficiencies as you move on, as they did. They encouraged us to follow the evidence and to listen to what the material is telling us, and that's what we intend to do. And so we'll be using GIS mapping and tracking of information for any items of interest that may have an address that we might be able to use to determine additional information to let us know that we're in the right area. So things like that. And then other pieces that supported certain aspects of the search, like it's best to use a flat surface to search on, for instance. They only had one skid steer operating to spread their waste, and they advised that if they could do it over, they would have at least two, and that's what our operation plans for. So learning from things like that. So it was a great conversation. We had ongoing conversations with them, and again, we thank them for that knowledge.
Premier, or on that, we've been told that the folks involved with the search have had signed NDAs or confidentiality agreements. Can you speak to why that's needed?
Well, at the end of the day, these folks are public servants, right? Like the government of Manitoba is their employer. And it's just a standard thing with people who work for the government that you do your health and safety training. You have to do an oath and, promise confidentiality. And you do respect in the workplace, so this is just standard fare for anybody who works in the public service.
You mentioned that asbestos was encountered, but
Yeah.
it wasn't an issue. Can you just tell us what's being done with the asbestos that searchers do find?
Well, the asbestos I'm talking about was on the top layer, if you will, that we moved as part of stage 3 in order to get to stage 4, and it was relocated to a different part of the Prairie Green landfill, and that was done without issue. So for all the planning and meticulous preparation to get ready to deal with asbestos, I would say that the first encounter with it has shown that we can manage that safely. I don't know if there's more you want to add to that. But.
That's correct. So PGL accepts asbestos in self-contained bags, so we knew that we would be encountering them as part of our stage 3 operations. So like Premier said, we didn't have any incidents. We monitored daily to monitor for the presence of asbestos particles, and the results were well below the thresholds put forth by Safe Work Manitoba. In addition, we've come up with a comprehensive asbestos and hazardous materials management plan that details all of our detailed plans, including delegation of responsibilities, the communication process, providing training and awareness, which we did last week for staff, regular surveillance, so ongoing monitoring, and then procedures to avoid or the release of asbestos materials. So first and foremost is prevention, of course, and then being prepared with our emergency planning, protecting the employees with the personal protective equipment that Premier spoke of, and then having a robust decontamination process. So all of those processes and procedures are in place for staff.
And having done it on the way to a press conference, I can tell you that it's very robust. There's like you're in the facility, washing the gloves and, doffing the Tyvek suit, washing your boots and that. Then you go into the trailer and then you're removing the inner layer of masks and the surgical gloves and stuff like that. And then all that gets washed too. So it is a very, very meticulous process to ensure that the material inside the search facility stays there, and then everyone's safe before they go for lunch or go home for the day.
Premier, one of the you called the families eloquent and powerful speakers on their own, right? And one of the most eloquent and powerful speakers about all of this has been Kathy Merrick from the beginning, right? Our late Grand Chief of the Assembly of Manitoba Chiefs. You got quite close to her through this process and many other processes before it, right? I mean, I don't want to put you in this position, but what would you think she would think to have arrived at this point? Because this was something that was so close to her heart up until her last breath, quite literally. So could you tell us what you think she would say at this point, and if she heard that this is the news today?
Well, we talked about her yesterday with the families, and the families thanked her, and so do I. And yeah, it was really difficult when we lost Kathy Merrick. But her family said the search is the issue that mattered most to her. And so as we move forward into stage 4, and personally with these hands, as they say, moved landfill material, I know that we're honoring her spirit and her commitment to Indigenous women.
Ms. Backen, I had one question for you. You know, you've talked a little bit about how you're learning through this stage as well as it's been so far. In terms of the shifts, how does that look like for, if you could give us an idea of, you know, a day, say, you know, you start clearly at 6 a.m. and of course that means driving there for a lot of people, things like that. When do they work until, and, you know, we're now getting nights early? Like, this is a very technical thing that I sort of was wondering about that, right? Like, as the daytime looks smaller and smaller here in Manitoba, can you tell us about that? Like, what does that look like?
Sure. So we've recruited 3 search teams, so we're calling them as teams A, B, and C. On any given day, 2 teams will be scheduled. So the first team will be scheduled for 6 a.m. to 4 p.m. The next team will be scheduled for 7 to 5 p.m. So at the family and community request, we've arranged for a shuttle for those employees as well. So there's a pickup and drop off from downtown Winnipeg to make sure that we can get the workers to site safely. Throughout the day, they'll be on an hour on, hour off schedule. So as we talked about potentially doing about a bin per hour, the intent would be one team would go into the search facility, complete searching of the one bin. They do go through their decontamination robust process, and then the other team would come in. So it would go on and on like that throughout the day until operations cease at 5 p.m.
And last when I was there at the site with you all, I mean, obviously this facility wasn't done yet, right? And many others like it were still being in the process, and they're done quite quickly since then. The healing site wasn't furnished from what I had, what you told us. Can you tell us a little bit about that? What's going on at the healing site a bit now?
Sure. Well, we've been working with the families, and so we're making a couple modifications just to give them the privacy that they're requesting during this difficult time. So those modifications are underway, and we're going to get them into the space as soon as we can.
Okay, do we have any
Another topic? Premier, can you talk a little bit about Justin Trudeau's trip to Mar-a-Lago? Was it a good idea? Have you contacted Doug Burgum yet? Are you planning to meet with him?
I think yes to everything you asked there. I think the trip to Mar-a-Lago is important. You'll know that our U.S. trade advisor is fond of saying relate before you negotiate. And so I think sitting down to break bread is a good idea. I spoke to folks from the federal delegation Friday evening, Saturday via text, and so we're definitely reaching out also to our state level representatives. And I would say with the announcement of not only Doug Burgum, but also the Department of Homeland Security choice as well, you have a few people in the Trump administration who know where Manitoba is on a map. And so it's going to be important for us to follow up and just make that case. I can tell you that we're hard at work on ensuring that Manitoba's voice is heard in the U.S., and that's part of how we can ensure that this Team Canada approach is successful. You know, the federal government is obviously in their lane, and all of us as premiers and provincial governments and territorial governments too are working our paths in to the U.S. as well. We got to keep the strong economy. We got to keep good jobs, and we'll have some more information to share at the State of the Province tomorrow as well.
And what about the fiscal update? Are we expecting a second quarter update tomorrow?
I don't know about the exact date. The second quarter update is in the works, yeah.
And so have you connected with Doug Burgum yet, or you're trying to connect with Doug Burgum? So-
We're reaching out to like everybody right now, so yeah.
And if, you know, you've been calling for Canada to meet its NATO spending targets, what if the amount of federal transfers was reduced to Manitoba in order to help meet that target? Would you be okay with that?
No, because we need stability here at the provincial level. We know that the federal government has the ability to meet the NATO 2% defense commitment, and so they should do that. We should be investing in the Canadian Armed Forces and the military at any time, but at a time when that helps to strengthen the basis of our trade relationship with our most important trading partner and helps us protect jobs. And I think it's even more incumbent that we see that happen.
Okay.
Just a couple quick clarifications on the search. Is it 7 days a
sure.
week?
6 days a week.
6 days a week. And you said that they decontaminate every hour? Like one team searches for an hour, they decontaminate, the other team searches?
Correct.
And then they go back?
Yes.
Okay.
Why?
So in developing the search process with Dr. Emily Holland, we're leaning on her expertise from her experience in the Picton search, as well as our conversation with Saskatoon Police. They were actually more on a 20 minutes on, 20 minutes off type of schedule. So it's a grueling process and it's manual labor. So it's to give them the break that they'll need between shifts.
And they need to go through the whole decontamination process every time they leave that part of the facility?
Correct.
So, okay.
Correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.